got like 10 studs in Dubai now.
That was 4.6 million actually.
Okay, well,
Get it right.
went to Asia to race Lamborghini Huracan.
I looked, it was around $250,000.
20k sales and 30.
Wild! Yeah, it's bread.
I want to hear your whole story, to be honest, because I know it's a bit of a fascinating one. So, how did everything start off for you? You know, was you always an entrepreneur did you have like an entrepreneurial mindset from being young? How did that kind of go for you?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel old now at 26, thinking back. I guess, yeah, I've told this story a few months ago on another pod.
Yeah.
And then I think I spoke obviously little bits here and there on my own pod, the Midnight Pod, which I'm not sure if I'm going to continue doing or not at the minute. It's a bit of a dilemma. But I guess entrepreneurially, probably started when I was maybe like 16 to 18. Grew up in the north in York.
Yeah.
Went to a standard state school. Mum was a nurse, all this shit. Wasn't exposed to entrepreneurship or like making money out of, you know, any normal ways at all. Went to uni, fucking hated uni, didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I guess started selling stuff on like eBay when I was like 16, like, you know, just trying different things here and there. Used to be obsessed with rowing, so I was like properly into sports. Like that was my real focus, my passion when I was like age 11 to probably like 18. Then when I was at uni, I'm trying to think back now, it actually feels so long ago, I've almost forgotten. I've done loads of different things. I guess the first thing I did, I started a clothing brand, like the first Shopify brand I had called Gentry Club, funnily enough, which was literally like white t-shirts, me stitching a fucking logo on it, didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Mad.
Was working in John Lewis when I was 18, summer job, like £5 an hour, put all my money into stock basically. And I remember people in the year below literally like taking the piss out of me. It was a classic, don't know what the fuck I'm doing, didn't sell any. And then sacked that off, didn't really work. That was like the first card on the table, first foray into ecom, I guess. And then went to uni. I was studying business for like 6 weeks, dropped out. Went and did a placement when I was 19 because I dropped out in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, in Mayfair in London. And I guess that was when I was first exposed to like entrepreneurship and people that actually build businesses, because, you know, I've been interested in it broadly online, but like I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anyone in my family that started a business, etc., etc. None of my mates were entrepreneurial at all. I always felt like the odd one out, to be honest. Like didn't want to be at uni, etc., etc. Like I said, dropped out. Did this placement for like 6 months, then went back to uni to study advertising, ironically, because that's kind of what I got into, and ended up dropping out again. But while I was in uni, must have had, I don't know, 5 or 6 different like drop shipping stores.
What was they like?
I had a leggings brand called Wavy Leggings, which was like the first thing that made a bit of money. Probably did like 10 grand in revenue. Wasn't running paid ads or anything. Yeah. This was like print on demand, because I didn't have any money to buy stock.
How was you growing that? Like, how was you actually like driving them sales on your first?
Literally Instagram, like organic Instagram. And this is back in like 2015. So fucking ages ago now. First thing that ever really did any numbers, so I was still in uni, this would have been end of 2016, summer 2016, that sort of time. Discovered Facebook ads, started drop shipping jeans, because like Geordie Shore was massive at the time. I was living in Newcastle, so obviously that's where they filmed stuff. Saw a trend of like people wearing ripped jeans, spray on skin, all that sort of shit. Started drop shipping this shit from China, running Facebook ads, like CPAs were like £2 back then, and I was like, fucking hell, we've got a business here. Mate got involved, he put like some savings in, and like it became like 50-50 partners, I think it was. We ended up getting an office while I was in uni, probably doing like 30 to 50 grand a month in revenue at this point, like, and I was, you know, making enough profit to, in my mind, suddenly it was like, I don't need to be at uni. So I just stopped going. And this would have been start of 2017, just stopped going basically. And it gets to summer 2017, I got kicked out of uni technically because I just didn't submit any work, told my parents I wasn't going anymore. At this point, I had an office in Newcastle. It was a bit of a weird setup. So I'm living in a shared house as a student at 21 with like 5 other guys. No one really knows what the fuck I'm doing. I think they all think I'm just some drug addict or whatever.
Drug dealer.
And I was just like hustling away, early days. That dropshipping brand ended up becoming a brand called Dusk. So this is mad thinking about it now, because I always tell people about like the other 2 brands that we'll get onto before the current one. But I actually did a lot of stuff before that, and I often think if I'd stuck with that, that could have been like multi-million pound business, but it never got to that point, because we probably did like, I don't know, 200-300 grand in revenue, made a bit of money. But me and my mate fell out. We got a legal dispute over the brand name. Some company in America sued us, basically said you can't sell anything else anymore. And I was like, fuck this, kind of fell out with my mate, who was effectively the co-founder, who's now an investor in my business. So it's funny how things come full circle. Ollie, he runs Saw With Us agency, he was watching this. Brings us to summer 17. I would have been 21, and I was like...
But can I quickly stop you? So, you've probably thought about making money from your phone before, or your bedroom, or wherever the hell you want to. Well, the thing is, you're probably thinking this is probably impossible, but it's actually not. There are tons of side hustles out there that you can get involved with to make a profit on. For example, reselling. There is this app for your phone. We'll pop it on screen now. We made this app, and basically it teaches you exactly how to resell, tells you when these limited edition, highly demanded items come out. All you have to do is buy them and sell them on eBay for a profit. And the thing is, these items sold out everywhere. So that means that people who want these items have nowhere else to buy them other than eBay and Facebook and places like that. You will sell your products there, and you'll start making a profit. So the link to download this app and sign up will be in the descriptions videos for people. And if you want to go about this month making more money than you did last month, then sign up, or it's up to you. You can sit there, still be a dosser, and still be the same you was last month, or you can take action. So just think about that, people. Think about it. So how come you didn't? Yeah, it's all good. How come you didn't continue? Well, obviously when you and your mate fell out and stuff like that. Why did you not want to continue at that point? Like, why did you not think what was the reason of not continuing it?
Like, I think he was like a year and a bit younger, didn't want to leave uni. I was doing most of the work. This fucking legal dispute, kind of complicated. And at the time, I just wanted freedom. I was like, I don't want to be at uni. I don't want to get a normal job. I never actually even thought about getting a normal job. It never crossed my mind. It just, even when I went to uni, I knew I wouldn't finish. And I guess, kind of summer 17 is when I escaped the matrix in many ways, which is obviously a term that people seem to use now, but it's actually true.
Yeah, 100%.
Then started traveling, got into traveling for the first time, summer 17, went to Europe by myself because no one would come with me. I didn't know anyone that was doing shit online.
So you just literally winged it on your own?
Literally went to Barcelona, Ibiza, Germany, Italy by myself. There's loads of vlogs of this on my YouTube from when I was 21 at the time. Yeah, it's mad. I look very different. And I was literally just hustling online. I was so gassed to just not be working a shit summer job like I was every year prior. And then I guess it brings us to end of summer 17.
So can I quickly stop you again?
It's a long journey.
It's a sick journey though, man. So when you was hustling and stuff during these times when you was traveling, what was you doing? What exactly was you actually doing?
Yeah. So that clothing brand basically dissolved. We just stopped running it. We sold the stock, whatever. And I was like, well, I've got a bit of money, not much, but I've learned the skill of Facebook ads, etc.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered drop shipping properly, because I kind of dabbled in it with the jeans stuff, but ultimately we were still buying our own stock, and that came more of a custom brand. It's funny because most people start getting into e-com through drop shipping. Yeah. Whereas I'd originally had my own brand. Granted, it was fucking tiny, and I sold £200, but I was making my own products, and then I did the ripped jeans stuff, which was semi drop shipping. But then I went back to the drawing board and was like, all right, all I want to do now is just make as much money as possible online and just be able to travel and figure out what's next. And wasn't really thinking about much else. So that's when I went back to the drawing board and got into a bunch of different dropshipping shit. I had a leggings website similar to the wavy leggings stuff I'd done. Just dropshipping stuff from AliExpress, the classic, super simple e-com setup that people speak about now. But it was back when Facebook ads were super cheap, no feedback scores. It was just, it was a different world. It was way easier.
So how did you even learn to do dropshipping and stuff like that? Obviously you done it semi. How did you actually come to obviously, because for people who don't know what dropshipping is, you don't really see the stock at all, do you? You just basically get it shipped directly from China to your customers. Is that how you was operating it?
Yeah, exactly. It's the best way to start with no money, basically, and move super lean, super quick. All you have to do is set up a Shopify website and run ads effectively. And do it as well as you can, I guess.
So how does that work?
Facebook groups.
Yeah. So how does? Oh wow, Facebook groups.
Back in the day.
Wow, that's a bit like an OG Discord. Yeah,
they were it was the OG Discord. Literally, I was in so many cult econ groups. Mad. It's like a meme looking back.
That's insane.
It's how it worked.
Wow, it's mad how it's evolved from that now to Discord and stuff like that. There's tons of obviously people are offering side hustles and stuff like that as paid subscriptions and whatnot. But that's pretty mad how it actually come from Facebook groups and like that. And I imagine all that information was free. You didn't really have to pay for anything like that.
Didn't pay for anything, no. And a lot of YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
You can learn most things on YouTube.
Yeah, that's literally for people who who are committed to actually learning. You just have to be committed enough to actually learn. I suppose you just have to be determined and just go search around, research stuff like that. That's how Jake over there learned how to do Amazon. You just literally you get so determined at points that you can literally learn anything. And it's like, I learned coding myself, literally just did not know. I literally knew like the very, very, very basics, and just over time, over the fact of having a business, just managed to literally just learn as much as possible. And obviously it's a slower process, but I suppose that's the best way to learn. So when you was dropshipping and stuff like that, was the branded products, or was they literally just like no label, nothing?
Literally didn't give a shit. It was like, I just want to sell stuff and make a few grand a month in profit. And that's what I was doing. It was like pretty small scale at the time. And then I guess things kind of changed. I went to some e-com event at the end of 2017. It was called like the E-commerce World Summit in Singapore. So I got a one-way ticket, economy ticket by myself to Singapore. And actually, this is the most common question I ever get in DMs is, how do you meet people? I don't know anyone that's in e-com. I knew fucking no one that was remotely into entrepreneurship. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go to this event that was literally from a Facebook group. Like meeting internet friends. It felt proper weird. But went to this event, paid a few £100 for the ticket, whatever. And basically met a bunch of guys that were kind of my age, younger, older, whatever, all doing e-com. And I met this guy called Jordan, who's now one of my best mates. He was 18 at the time. I was 20, two years older, or 19 and 21. And he was doing like multi-six figures a month drop shipping. And I was like, wow, there's like levels to this shit. Yeah. And I probably look back at that event. It's like the first time I met anyone that viewed the world the same way and wanted to live differently and do their own thing. Because like most people, when you come from just wherever you're born, you can't choose who you grow up with.
It's very hard to find people who are like like-minded and stuff like that. And that's something I've got really lucky with. Like I'm like Will, who's like a business partner of mine. He literally lived next door to me, and he was the first person to come to me. Like, obviously, I was reselling with him and stuff like that, but he was the first person to come to me with like a business idea, and kind of like I always thought that I was gonna be like entrepreneurial before that, but he like came to me with the real like actual seed that allowed me to like grow into like all this other stuff. And it's like I've got very lucky, and I obviously know Tom and stuff like that. Whereas for you, it's obviously a bit of a different story, and that's one thing that I would recommend to like anybody who wants to get into like entrepreneurship and stuff like that, and like making businesses, is finding other people who are like, who want to make money, who want to start businesses, who are really aspirational and stuff like that. Because otherwise, it's like there's a saying, you are who you hang around with. If you hang around with like people who are wanting to make businesses, you're all going to succeed. They're going to share your ideas and like their successes and stuff like that. And I imagine you probably learned quite a lot off the people you met at these events and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I literally think it's the single most important thing in life is who you hang around with, and it's like 100%. So cliche, but it's because it's so true. And I think you said it on the last pod we did at the end. It's like the most important thing, or Brad said it, I think. Yeah. And that was kind of the start of the next step in like that traveling period, I suppose. Because at the end of 2017, I met these guys, a bunch of Australians, ended up going to Bali and Thailand and a bunch of other places, America. Basically, spent the whole of 2018. Literally just in different countries every month. Yeah. And
was they people who was like running businesses and stuff like that? Or was
it just like, all just e-com dropshippers, all doing the same shit. And then probably started to scale up in like 2018. I got to like $500,000 a month in revenue. I was probably making like 30 to 50 grand a month profit. Looking back, I should have probably fucking done something wise with that money. I just blew a lot of it on like cars and traveling.
I can imagine.
Stupid shit, but I don't regret any of that, to be honest, because it was fucking legendary.
It's easy to do when you're young and stuff like that. Like you often, I feel like you need to get that period of like blowing money kind of out your system, and then you kind of like, well, fuck, probably shouldn't have done that, but like, you can't regret it, I suppose. But so going on from there, how much was you actually like making a month? Like how much was like your group of people, like, how much was you all like making a month just like traveling around and stuff like that? Like, because you're obviously from your laptop, your mobile.
In 2018, geez, I probably did like 3 million in revenue, made like 300 to 400 grand profit, something like that. But I probably didn't realise how impressive that was at the time, because everyone around me was doing it, and that was the important thing. It's like it became normal to kind of live that way and have that freedom. And this is when like I've got a twin brother who's the complete opposite to me. He would have been finishing uni and so on. And a lot of this is vlogged on my old YouTube channel, which I'm kind of glad I did, because I look back at that now and think, fucking hell, there were some interesting times. And then you pretty much spent the whole of 2018 doing that. Start of 2019, trying to keep it chronological. I got a bit sick of like constantly traveling and so on, and that's when I moved to London with Fred, who is the most requested podcast guest of my podcast. Who runs Sanucci now, which is probably the biggest jewelry brand in the UK. And another guy called Seb, who I'd met.
Was these two like both traveling with you when you was?
So these guys I actually met. I'd never met them when I moved in with them. I knew people that knew them, but then I kind of started to build this like e-com network of people all over the place. Really, people I've met in Bali, Australia, all that sort of shit. Everyone I'd met in like 2017, 2018. Moved to London in 2019. I kind of skipping a little bit, but that's when I started Midnight City, the jewelry business. That was actually like end of 2018.
So was that like your first serious like brand that you started?
Yeah, so it's funny because this is when, end of 2018 is probably when Facebook started to get, it just became a lot more competitive with dropshipping, and like profits were drying up, and I was like, all right, fuck, I made a bit of money here. But what I actually want to do long term is build brands, because like dropshipping is really a way to make money. It's not really a way to, it's not a long term thing. I don't think you can make millions from it. I think you can make, I mean, some people have, I never did. I think it's a way to make really good money while living a pretty nomadic, like free life. Like I wasn't working like 12 hours a day. It was more like laptop lifestyle.
Literally.
I didn't really care. Like that period was more about traveling, learning things, meeting people.
But
and then I was like, I want to build a brand that's a bit more long term. So basically packed in the dropshipping kind of it just wasn't very profitable anymore, to be honest. And I was like, just wasn't that creatively interested in what I was doing. And then 2019 started this brand. Like long story short, got it to like 7 figures in the first year, profitable, because I'd done stuff in the past as well. It wasn't like my first venture, but I was never that into jewellery. It was more just like I see an opportunity in men's jewellery in the UK, and it was a great brand. And then I guess 2020, I'm kind of skipping on a bit, maybe we can come back to certain bits.
Yeah, we'll come back.
2020 ended up running both Neon Beach. So I launched Neon Beach, which was the problem business, which I've fucking spoken about a lot on my pod. At the end of 2019, it's like a side project. And then, you know, long story short, 2020 was running both of them, did like 12 million in revenue, was on track to make like a few million in EBITDA, and then the fucking end of the year basically ruined me. The fucking supplier went bankrupt, and the rest is history.
We'll get onto that, I suppose.
And it was an absolute shitstorm. But 2020 was pretty mad because, like fucking living in a penthouse, I had a Ferrari and a Range Rover downstairs, and I was like, wait a minute, how the fuck have we got here?
That's fucking mad. Just
but
from
I guess I was then
laptop.
humbled a bit from what went wrong, but we can get onto that. But yeah, like it was kind of mad. Like I guess 2017, 18, 19, 20 just felt like a constant progression.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of a mad period, to be fair.
Yeah.
But so, it was all self-made. Like, you know, I started with 50 quid.
Mad. That's what I mean though, like for people who think like me and Jay was on about this the other day, it's like, you know, obviously people are in really bad situations, but like, you know, you can literally have like 50 quid, 100 quid, a couple of £100, and you can like, if you're determined enough and you committed enough, you know, you can realistically like turn your life like completely around. Like, you know, I mean, you was literally living in a penthouse, Ferrari, Range Rover. Granted, it fucking went a bit tits up, but you know, it's still like you managed to like create 50, like from that original starting point, like you created so much. And that's what I mean, like, you know, you can literally do anything if you put your mind to it. Like if you're determined enough to learn and determined enough to complete it, then you know, the world is yours for the taking, really. It's just up to you. Obviously it's really hard along the way, and it depends how much like devotion you have, but it's an inspiring story, to be honest. Like I'm sure a lot of people listening, a lot of people doing e-com and stuff like that, I'll probably like look up to you and think like, you know, this is crazy. But I think we'll take it back to like the start of like the jewelry brand and stuff like that. So why did you decide to like start a jewelry brand? And obviously you was living with Fred at the time.
Was it just before I met him, actually?
Oh, okay.
It would have been like end of 2018. Yeah, honestly, it's weird thinking back because you have a different perspective like 3 years on. Why did I start that? I think it felt like an easy way into building a brand. Mm-hmm. You know, in my mind, the difference between a brand and like drop shipping and like stores and shit is a brand has potential longevity, something that can be an asset to sell. It's something that has generally better customer service, that you actually, you know, you're making bespoke products, all this sort of stuff. Whereas drop shipping, at the end of the day, you know, anyone can steal your product. It's not, you don't own the IP. Yeah. Granted, you can make kind of quick money when it works, but there's no longevity there. Like, it's not really something you'd be necessarily like proud to share
100%
with like fucking friends and shit. It's not like cool. It's more just like, which is why I like drop shippers, and I always take the piss now on like Twitter, like they never reveal their store because they're scared that a competitor will rip it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, jewelry, I was just like, I built up knowledge of like supply chain and so on, and I was like, well, I want something with a high margin, you know, there's a gap in the market, it's not that expensive to put money into stock because the margin was like 95% on the product.
Wow, that's insane, to be fair.
And this was probably just around the time that Crafted London had launched, through another massive brand now. Obviously, I viewed them as a competitor at the time. They ended up going way beyond where I did because I ended up focusing on the neon stuff. But yeah, I was never that into it really. I just wanted to do something I thought was quite cool and had an obvious market, and it just worked. And I was running all my own ads at the time, same as I had been prior to that with like drop shipping. I'd spent millions on ads and built up knowledge on like, I guess, every part of the e-com sphere. So
did you have any employees when you was like running Midnight City?
Like 1 or 2 VAs, so virtual assistants. There was no like office or...
Mad.
Yeah.
How come you didn't want to like go towards that kind of route? Did you just feel like there's no like need for it and you're just trying to keep it lean?
Honestly, it's weird. I think I wanted to keep it lean, but then when I started living with Fred and he was running Sanucci, I probably thought, fuck, I can't be competing against my own flatmate.
That's what I was thinking, like, you know, just obviously.
I always was kind of thinking, what am I going to do next? This works, this is good. He was way more passionate about jewellery, and obviously, like I said, now he's fucking insane levels, particularly for his age. He needs to come on the pod and tell his story, but yeah, so I think that kind of probably subconsciously put me off like focusing on it, because I didn't want to compete against my own flatmate, which is probably like part of the story I never really told. Even though he was doing like hip hop stuff, whereas I was doing more like basic chains like this sort of shit.
Yeah, 100%. Like still though, at some point it becomes, you know, one person dabbles into like your style, and then, you know, before you know it can get a bit sour, and that's one thing that happens with business. You know, it's a very like. Yeah. It become a sour game, and obviously like, you know, it can break friendships up like very easily. Like there's no like line in that. But was there ever any kind of like animosity between you about it?
Maybe a little bit now and then, but like I said, like, I just knew my heart wasn't in. I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be in fashion broadly long term. I just never cared that much about it. Like, and it was profitable. It was really profitable, particularly in like 2019, 20. Which that's the period I was running, I guess. But yeah, I always thought like, you know, I'll figure out the next thing, and that's when I stumbled on the whole neon thing, which I was way more excited about. Yeah, and how did you even stumble across that? Well, I got a sign made for my own bedroom. Yeah. From China, an LED sign. And yeah, it was a classic case. I think it's like textbook just entrepreneurship. To be honest, like it didn't exist, so I made it. Literally. And then I fucking filmed an ad in my... It's kind of legendary, to be honest. Like, people need to go and watch the original pod, and like, I still think it's legendary. Like, it's probably the fastest growing like e-com thing I've ever come across. Yeah. And a lot of people said that to me. And yeah, it was a classic case of right product, right time. You know, COVID happened. Yeah. So was it during, like, did it start just before COVID? Yeah, so I started in December 19. Yeah, and it was blowing up in like month 2. It was crazy. In like month 1 even. Yeah. And then like March onwards with lockdown and so on. Yeah, the perfect product really. Yeah. And I just filmed all the ads in my flat, in my bedroom. And just chucking them on Facebook ads and stuff like that. I just did the website myself, did all the branding myself. At the time I was running the ads myself, ended up outsourcing that. But yeah, it was like classic like Chad scale, 0 to 1. It was fucking huge very quickly. Easily destroyed very fast though. So when you actually started that, like, what was like the setup? So was you just like selling like pre-made signs? Was it like custom made? What was so both. It's a horribly complicated business model. Because most people buy bespoke stuff. So by default, people say, oh, it's a dropshipping store. I mean, yes, kind of, because it's made to order. But like we had our own factory in China. Like the volume was ridiculous. Like I think we sold like 50,000 signs in a year. And you're talking like £300 each. So £250, £300 each. So it's a lot of money going through that website. And yeah, I ended up having a fucking army of VAs in the Philippines. I literally had 45 people at one point. Like what was they doing? Designers mainly, customer service. Like it was actually mad thinking back how big that operation was, and it was just me in a fucking kitchen. And I was also running the jewellery business as well, which was also doing record numbers during COVID, because I think like every brand during COVID, it just fucking boomed, particularly March, April, May. 100%. It was literally 2020 rocket. Yeah, and I just thought, fucking hell, this is a lot to handle. And yeah, in hindsight, it was pretty mad scale without necessarily the best foundations, because, you know, I was the only shareholder, I was self-funded. Like, I'm very good at 0 to 1 and like kind of the front end of stuff, but obviously I had an accountant and stuff, but I didn't have like no one with any real experience. Yeah. Because like there's businesses with 100 employees doing less revenue than that. 100%, literally. Like, whereas it was... And if reselling isn't for you, but you want to find another side hustle, we are launching a website very soon. We'll do exactly this. You will put in everything about yourself. Probably not everything, but you're putting things about yourself, and we will recommend a verified, legitimate side hustle for you. So there's no fucking dodgy scams going on, and you can sign up to a legit side hustle, and you can start making money. It's going to be dropping very soon, and it's going to be under the side hustle brand. Me and Fred sat over there running his thing, doing like pretty much the same scale. Yeah, it's quite mad to look back, really. So how come you was like going that VA route? Was you not thinking like, was you just like, how come you didn't think like, oh, like I'm gonna get like, you know, obviously like an office and stuff like that, or like even get like people like from the UK? Nearly did that, but it was COVID as well, bear in mind. So why would you get an office? I know, no one's getting offices. Yeah, literally. And then, yeah, like I always kind of wanted the freedom to never be tied down by an office. Although now my views potentially change on that, but yeah, it was just like keeping it lean, really, and it worked. when it worked until things went very wrong. But
so so we'll obviously get onto that. So what was the margins and stuff like on the neon signs?
Not that great. It was like 50% product margin, but because you're selling them for 300 quid, it might cost you 150. CPA's 100 quid minus overheads. It's probably making like 10% net profit.
Yeah.
But you're doing $1 million a month. So
fucking insane.
Yeah, it was big volume, very quick.
What was your CPA like during COVID and stuff like that?
Probably sub 100 quid. So on a £300 sign,
Mm-hmm.
it worked very well.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously like massively scalable because the AOV was so big. I was probably the only brand running ads in that space at that time on Instagram. Like loads of competitors came in, most of which were stealing my content and so on. So my bedroom was on every fucking website. Probably had like 30 million views of me speaking over this neon sign, like literally. And yeah, it was a chaotic time really. It just grew so quick.
So like, what was the scale like? What was like the growth like? So was it just like constant month on month growth, or did it kind of like?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember I launched it in the first month, did like 100 grand, got to $1 million a month by like month 5, and then kind of went towards Q4. And then, I mean, I've told this story a few times now, but like, long story short, ended up having, so like ITV had approached me to do a deal with Love Island. So did this deal with like Love Island USA, like had all this primetime TV ads and shit. It was fucked. I didn't know what I was getting into. Like Universal Music wanted to do loads of tour merch for fucking Billie Eilish and shit. I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like,
what?
There was just it was getting a lot of eyeballs. Had like 500,000 Instagram followers purely from ads in like the first 6 months. It was just very, very quick growth. And then I moved again, very long story short, moved all the production from China to the UK, ironically thinking that would make everything better. But that was the worst decision I ever made.
What was the thinking behind it?
Better margins, made in the UK because all competitors making it in China, but for good reason in hindsight. And just quicker shipping, all that sort of stuff. I was trying to take it to that next level from being like a bedroom brand to thinking like, how can I make this like the next fucking made.com and reach that sort of scale? Because I also had like private equity funds were emailing me like, we really like the brand, want to invest, all this sort of shit. So I was seeing fucking dollar signs.
Oh mate, I bet you was fucking gassing.
But yeah, ended up bringing all the production to the UK. Long story short, paid the supplier, like a B2B supplier that had effectively gone out of business because of COVID. They bit off more than they could chew, paid them loads of money up front, loads of signs, never got delivered and all came crashing down on me.
And they just went like
$2.5 million quid's worth of orders disappeared basically.
Fucking hell.
And someone's got to pay for that.
So did the company, like the factory company go bust?
Effectively, yeah. And kind of that's basically what happened and the rest is history.
I bet you was mega stressed during that period.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely worse than I made out on the first podcast because even now I reckon I got PTSD from that. Like, to summarise, the business went from making 7 figures profit to like being insolvent, me having to fucking speak to lawyers about who the fuck was going to pay for all this shit, doing meetings with bailout funds. I was literally Googling how do I save my business. Like, I've never been there before. And people think that shit can't happen, but it can at that scale. And when the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess, was all that scale, but then, fundamentally a bad decision and it came crashing down very quick. But it was the business side that was stressful enough. Yeah. But the probably more stressful part was the social media onslaught that I got, which I'd never experienced because I never even put content out. But you can imagine how it looks. Like there's a picture of me with a fucking Ferrari. It gets put into this Facebook group, and there's a lot of things I would like to say to the people that made those Facebook groups in hindsight, but I'll be the bigger man.
People made Facebook groups about
with like pictures of my parents in and shit.
What, and they made like Facebook groups?
Like,
what?
The whole narrative was I'm this multi-millionaire scam artist, and I can see how it looks like that to the average like civilian on the internet that knows nothing about anything. But it was quite literally the opposite of what was actually happening. What was actually happening was I was doing my best to save a business and do right by customers, but when 2.5 million quid disappears, it's quite hard to do that.
Yeah,
when you're literally self-funded in a bedroom. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I was some big corporate that had 500 employees and 20 years experience, and it was fucking rough. And then ultimately ended up getting bailed out by this fund back in like March 2021. Which was the right thing to do. Like, I could have shut my laptop and fucked off, but I probably wouldn't be alive right now.
Literally,
if that happened. Probably got put in a van and disappeared.
Or you'd have been like, your name, not that your name would have been crushed, but like, everything you did in the future, people would have been like that. You'd have this thing like looming over you kind of thing.
Yeah, so ultimately, I'm very proud of how I dealt with that because I actually think, and like, this is not exaggerating, I think other than like terminal illness or whatever, I don't think that period could have been any worse for a 24-year-old like entrepreneur.
I can imagine.
Like, I was genuinely suicidal for about 6 months. I reckon I was so close to just topping myself.
Fucking hell.
That's how bad it was. And like, it's kind of easy to look back now, but it was probably worse than I'm even describing, to be honest.
That is insane.
So I just think now nothing can really stress me.
Yeah, I suppose now, like, you're fucking, like, almost invincible. Like, well, not almost invincible,
Yeah,
but, like,
well,
you know, I suppose that's kind of like the thing.
I feel that way in comparison, yeah.
Literally. So how did it even though, like, get cleared up? So obviously, you, like, this bailout fund came. Did you, like, approach them? Did they approach you?
No, they approached me. Yeah, like, crash course in, like, how this sort of shit works, I guess, for people.
Yeah, so for people in a similar situation.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, obviously, spoke to my accountant. We knew the business was insolvent, which means you fucking owe more than you've got because fucking £2.5 million disappeared, basically. The balance sheet very quickly looks very unhealthy. And then you can either try and work out of it, trade out of it, but that's not going to happen when the public sentiment of a business is that fucked, because basically no one would buy from it anymore.
Can imagine.
Because 7,000 Trustpilot reviews saying I'm a scam artist, the scale was crazy. And yeah,
how many orders were not fulfilled?
About 8,000 maybe. But we're talking 8,000 orders that are 300 quid each. It's not like a £20 Amazon order.
Yeah.
So you can
people
imagine the chargebacks.
Fuming. Yeah.
We're talking like 1,000 emails a day.
And ITV pulled the plug at this point.
Yeah. Yeah,
oh
so it all got very complicated. Like, I had Daily Mail at my door.
Well,
that's how bad it got.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did they even get?
And bear in mind, they're all going with the narrative. This is some scam artist living in a penthouse, and I'm there like, it literally couldn't be further from the truth. But I don't know who to speak to, what to say. I've never dealt with this before.
Yeah, absolutely insane. So what did this company do? Did they just buy like the whole of?
They essentially buy the balance sheet.
Yeah.
And yeah, long story short, all the customers get their money back. I lost the vast majority of equity in the business. Ended up working with them for 6 months, and then sold the rest of my shares. And actually came out of it pretty well in the end. But they also ended up buying my jewellery business.
Oh wow!
The way I'd structured it is I'd structured both brands under the same limited company, which is mistake fucking number one. But that was a good business, so ended up coming out pretty well at that anyway. Yeah. And I wanted to move on from that anyway. Prior to all the shit with Neon Beach, I wanted to sell that.
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
It ended up kind of making sense to just do this deal, and yeah, being pragmatic about it, it ended up pretty well. But
what did you
at the time?
What was like the deal in the end? If you want to talk about it, I understand if you don't.
Well, I just got a bunch of money out of it basically.
Yeah.
It wasn't millions, but it was like 6 figures. So
it's not too bad.
It was fine. It was the best of a shit situation basically.
Yeah.
But you know, a year prior, I probably thought I'd be sat on 20 mil by now. By then,
it's literally literally you're almost like in heaven, and then you're just fucking falling off the edge of the world, mate.
Yeah.
Insane crazy story, mate. Honestly, it's crazy how that even happened, and I can imagine like the stress and stuff like that was next level. So, what was your thoughts after Neon Beach? Like after all this shit, was you a bit like, was you thinking about like going into business again? Well, obviously you did, but like, was the thoughts of not doing that after like the fucking?
Well, I basically worked with these guys for 6 months to kind of fix everything, which was fucking weird because it was effectively an employee of my own business. But that was the deal to be done basically. That was like summer 21. I was in a bad place. I'd like put on loads of weight and shit. Was living with my ex-girlfriend at the time, which was not a good setup. And then but basically got offered at the end. I can either get a bunch of equity in this group and big fat salary. Like anyone would bite their hand off. They're offering me like 150 grand salary, equity, all this shit. But for me, it was like fucking hell. It was like a pay cut, and I didn't want to be doing that shit anyway because I'd only ever wanted to do my own thing. Like I'd rather die than work for anyone else. Like genuinely. And I basically made the decision to move on, go back to the drawing board. But it was obviously going back to the drawing board with a shitload of experience, a great network, and like money. So I was confident in doing the next thing. But that's when I started working on the brand I'm now building, which is that came out from scratch. And that's also when I started the pod last September, so like bang on a year ago pretty much. And that whole story came to light. And then I spent the last year, I guess, building back from that. Building up to the new business, launching the new business like 5 months ago, and now I'm fucking deep in the trenches again on the new thing.
Yeah, literally. I suppose Yeah, I was literally listening to your update the other day, and I was like, and that's what it's like though. It becomes like an incredible grind, at the end. When on Neon Beach, I suppose obviously it grew massively, so you probably didn't experience that kind of like grinding phase where. But have you experienced that kind of like in the trenches? Obviously,
I feel like it's always grinding, even if the numbers are big or not. I think the one thing a lot of people miss in all of this is, obviously, prior to anything going wrong and me sharing my story and so on, is even before that, when things were going smoothly, there's always constant shit.
Yeah,
not
100%.
to that extent, but even when I was fucking being a bit of a posy cunt, like posting my R8 and so on Instagram, and I don't know, I would assume people that I used to go to school with thought I was a bit of a bellend. I was still probably working twice as much as they were.
Yeah.
Working on Saturdays and Sundays, like obviously people share the highlights. That's just the nature of Instagram. Everyone's guilty of it. But yeah, I just think people that aren't in the game of entrepreneurship don't realise it is all consuming, and it's probably made me bipolar, to be honest, because the highs are very high and the lows are cripplingly low. And I think depending on how quick you want to move and what you want to achieve, the highs and lows are probably different levels. Like maybe if you run a fucking little marketing agency, not say that's not good, but I know a lot of people probably run less stressful businesses, and they do that because that's what they want to do. But I've always wanted to try and go as big as possible and do cool shit. And I think for those still swinging, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think for those people who like wanna make a big business and stuff like that, like one thing we were discussing the other day was it's like you say like escape the 9-5. But then if you start your own business, you end up working fucking way more than 9-5. Like,
of course.
It's like, that's just like the nature of it, But I suppose it's just part of the game. If you want that kind of like, if it was easy, then everyone would do it. If you want that kind of like, if you want them things out of life, then I suppose that's the price you have to pay. It's that you have to be that devoted to making an incredible brand and stuff like that. So before you started Space Goods, was you thinking about starting anything else? Like, was there any other ideas on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably always had... I literally had a Google Drive folder of like brand ideas, and my problem was if I could look back, I wouldn't change it because that's just my character. But like when I was younger, I never stuck with one thing long enough, which
is very important.
Which I know, again, people like Fred, who has only ever done one thing, and for him that's paid off very well. My character was always I was trying loads of different things. I think now I've probably found the stuff I'm more interested in sticking on, but it's taken me like 6 years to fucking get there, I suppose. But yeah, I was always thinking about the next thing. I didn't know it would be mushrooms and the stuff I'm working on now. But I think another thing people kind of maybe gloss over because they think of, particularly the culture now, is like if you're a young firstly, people assume that everyone that's in entrepreneurship is a millionaire. Like, do you know what I mean? This whole like general narrative of, he's an entrepreneur, he must be a millionaire. Absolute bollocks. Most people are fucking hustling, and it takes years and years and years to make any decent money. Certainly did for me. But also I think people from the outside looking in forget the actual amount of skills that are required to start an econ brand. Like there's so many things, and like no one knows anything until you start, right? So like when I started, I knew fuck all nothing. Then I built up a skill set and learned more things and more things and more things. Up to the point where now when I was starting this brand, it felt like playing a game almost. It was like easy, or it felt easy, and like and I mean, it was like obviously I was going to do the next thing because, and I think this is a much better brand than stuff I've done in the past. But it's because I've done loads of stuff in the past and had ups, downs, failures, in betweens, and learned from each of them and applied it to the next thing. Like I think that's better than any fucking Harvard Business School MBA.
Literally, that's what I mean.
Certainly, the business going wrong, I think was probably better than any MBA.
100%. Something massively learned that you'll never be able to learn that like as much as you've learned it ever. Like ever, a lot of entrepreneurs won't. Like out of like everyone who's an entrepreneur, have any of them been through as bad as a time as like what happened when Neon Beach?
No, I mean I actually think I'd be surprised if that wasn't like technically the worst like business problem for someone of my age like in the country. Like it's got to be up there with like pretty historic fuck ups. But it's also a good story, and I'll never be short of stories, I suppose.
I suppose.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's a great thing, like you said. Like you probably wouldn't change it. Would you change it if you had a chance?
I mean, a bit of me probably thinks I would, but it's like anything. You look back and probably realise it was very valuable, and it certainly made me wiser in many, many ways.
Yeah.
And probably, a bit less of a slightly arrogant young person who thought I kind of was invincible.
I suppose at that point though, when it's growing that fast, you know, it's inevitable to think that way realistically, especially when you've just like you said, it was just like 17, 18, 19 constant growth, and then you get to Neon Beach and that, and it just keeps going and going. It's just like straight up graph really. But like, how do you think that, like, because obviously when you started Neon Beach and stuff like that, before we get into Space Goods and stuff, how do you think like COVID has like changed? Like, because obviously you started Neon Beach during COVID. What do you think's like changed between like now and COVID in terms of growing brands and things like that?
I think it's way harder now. I think 2020, that period probably gave a lot of people false hope that they were better at e-com than they thought they were. Yeah. Because particularly like dropshippers and so on. Because it was just, more people were spending money online, ads were cheaper. I mean, I'm sure there's some exceptions in certain areas, but yeah, 2020 was crazy. I think it definitely is harder now, but I think that's good because it means that you've got to be better to grow. You've got to be better to be in the game. And I think it filters out a lot of, like I said, people that maybe, you know, like, there's a lot of like TikTok dropshippers on like Twitter and so on, like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. There's a few I'm thinking of, but I'm not going to name. That, I don't know, they think they're like these old hands and like really experienced, like top businessmen. It's like, no, you've been dropshipping for 3 months and you hit a winner on one ad. Yeah. Like, that's not experience. Like, literally. But, I mean, there's obviously a lot of people that are young and crushing it as well, but I just think, 2020, I mean, even myself, like back in 2017, 18, like, that was probably like golden years in terms of like easy money online. Yeah. Not easy, but like it felt a lot easier then. Whereas now, I think you really have to know what you're doing to last at least. And I think for businesses that have like started in COVID, especially for like our business and stuff like that, I feel like, you know, what you said then, it's almost not like false hope, but like, you know, in COVID, it was just like you said, there's probably exceptions, but like the way the market worked in COVID was totally different. Like it is literally like, it was almost too easy. Like, you know, even for our business, it just literally like, even when COVID started, it was a bit like, how's this going to go? And then like a month in, skyrocketed, just literally just like took off. Like, and it's like, and then at that point you're like, oh, well, obviously I've done it and stuff like that. Like I can do it again, but like the times have changed. That was like such a crazy period for thingy. But I think it's good because I think, you know, it should give you self-belief, you know, in yourself. Like, you know, it kind of just like probably like, I can't think of the word, but like increased your growth rate. Exponential. Yeah, exponential. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. It kind of like increased your growth rate, but you know, it was a mad time, and I think for people who, you know, like have been through that, then you know now is a much harder time, and I imagine, you know, you've probably seen that as well. I know we've definitely seen it, that it's become a bit harder and stuff like that, especially with like ads and stuff like that. But I suppose, like you said, it just makes you better in the long run and stuff like that. Yeah, 100%. So coming on starting Space Goods, obviously, did you have any like brands that you was actually like close to starting other than Space Goods? Not really. So I nearly went into the fucking teeth whitening space briefly back in October. Then I literally was like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't give a shit about this. What was the reason? Because you didn't give a shit? Yeah, literally. It was like I wanted to quickly get into something, but then I went back to the drawing board. I was like, wait, hold on, don't rush this shit. But it was the first time ever that I actually sat with like a blank sheet of paper, like quite literally, and was like, what do I want to do here? Because in the past, I'd always jumped into stuff. Like I said, I wasn't that interested in jewellery, just sort of started it and it worked. The neon sign thing was kind of like a side thing that blew up. And then I was like, fuck it, right. I want to do something now that's the last brand ever build that, you know, can actually reach the heights that I've always wanted to reach, you know, build a fucking £100 million revenue business, whatever. And then I sat down and was like, well, okay, so based on my experience, what criteria does it need to hit? And I was like, well, I want a high margin, which it does have. Supplements have in general. I want something that's consumable, so we can be a subscription product, which I'd never done, but I always thought that'd be cool because in the past I'd never done that. I want something that doesn't feel saturated yet, but there are signs of brands in other countries like America that are crushing it, but haven't brought it over here yet. And like these are all things that I wouldn't have thought about when I was a bit younger because I was less experienced. But then I was like, you know, based on what I'd done, I just this intuitively felt like the things I needed to focus on. And then within that, I was like, I started just playing around, literally researching brands. I'd have spreadsheets and spreadsheets of stuff I'd seen that was cool. And just, it's a grind really. And I was like, where do I instinctively want to go with this? And then I'd always been interested in like mushrooms and like the research around, like, I guess magic mushrooms, but also just like therapeutic mushrooms. I don't know if that's the fucking term, adaptogenic mushrooms like lion's mane and so on. very different things, obviously, because one's a psychedelic, one isn't. And then I was like, fucking hell, wait a minute. There's a lot of research going on around like, you know, psychedelics and like, again, mushrooms broadly, magic and non-magic mushrooms. And then I was like, well, there's certain brands that I've seen that I bought their products, you know, tried them all. I was like, they all look the fucking same. They're all brown packaging. There's not that many in the UK anyway. There's a few brands I'm thinking of, but then in America there's quite a few crushing it. But they're all, like I say, like brown packaging. Yeah. Very granola is what I would say, like aesthetically. So I was like, all right, cool. Broadly speaking, I want to go into mushrooms, but then I want to build the first product. I want to start with one SKU as well, so one product only. Because in the past I'd complicate things way too quick. So then I started working on Rainbow Dust, which I still think is a fucking sick product. To be honest.
Mate, it's the brand is amazing, mate.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it's
I think I did a good job with that, to be fair. But I was like, I don't like taking tablets because most of the brands sell this shit, like Lion's Mane capsules, whatever. I wanted to put an all-in-one blend. You know, I've been inspired by like Huel and Athletic Greens, which I've been customers of for ages anyway. And I, just kind of took bits from what I liked in other brands, didn't like in other brands, came up with this ingredient profile, and I knew nothing about fucking supplements like 9 months ago. I just started researching heavily and kind of became self-proclaimed, well, certainly not an expert, but like, learned a lot, found a supplier, obviously like a lab that I work with, and I wanted to work with someone in the UK rather than China, which I've typically done. Because I was very conscious of, don't want to fucking poison customers, it doesn't feel quite right just going straight to China for this shit. We're just like, 100%. Be a mistranslation and poison 1,000 people.
That'd be fucked up.
So I found this really good supplier, which that in itself took a few months, to be honest. It's been working with them since November. Long story short, ended up creating Rainbow Dust, which is the first product. And fucking launched it in April. And the one thing I did do differently this time around as well was I got a few angel investors involved.
Why was that?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. That was less about the money and more about, it felt like a win-win to have experienced people on my side. Obviously I also get money from them, but I could have started the business myself without investors' money or anything. That wasn't the primary reason. It was really just, like I'd rather have a slightly smaller stake in something that is backed by, and like, you know, one of my investors has sold a business for like close to 100 million quid. Another one has sold a business called Content Cow to Adobe for 9 figures. Like, they're all like legit guys. I'm not talking like drop shippers that made a bit of money. Like guys that have been in the game like 10 years plus, and a few of my mates as well, including Fred and Ollie that I mentioned at the start. And it just felt like I was assembling kind of like a fucking SWAT team or something. I mean, they're not that involved in the business, most of them, but one or two of them are, and having that accountability as well, because I know that I can sometimes get swayed by ideas and so on, and I wanted to make myself more accountable by having other people's money and other people's vested interest in the business. So like raising money, that was the first time going down that route. I mean, like I said, for me it was pretty easy because all of my mates, and I'd built up that network over the years, and even through the pod. 2 of them I met through the podcast. And that's like the interesting value in that, is that they've turned into investors, and you know, long term that could have like massive ROI. So
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how do you even go about, like, so there's probably people out there thinking like, you know, how, like the classic way I imagine to get a VC or something like that is like, you know, is to just go pitch them something, and then they kind of say, oh well, I want to invest, or you know, I don't want to invest. So how did that come about? Was the 2 main investors through the pod?
Yeah, I mean, so there's generally like 2 types of investors in startups. There's angels, and then there's like institutional money, which is like VCs or PE funds, which is a completely different kettle of fish. Like angels are just high net worth people. Well, not even necessarily high net worth, but usually because they can give you money. And for me, I knew a lot of them. I didn't want to get any fund involved. I mean, it's also way harder to do that. Because you typically wouldn't do that at like pre-revenue stage anyway. But I guess for me, like the pitch was, it's me doing it. Because I've done stuff in the past, and if I was some 19-year-old who'd never built anything, going to raise money, unless it's like your parents giving you money, which certainly for me it never was because I don't have any money. It'd be very hard to do that. Like people message me all the time, like, how do you raise money? I want to start a business. I think going to start a dropshipping store and prove that you can hustle and do stuff first. Whereas for me, I'd done it in the past. I clearly demonstrated I know how to scale stuff, particularly like 0 to a few million. I've done that a few times in different industries. So I think I was very backable, and I also think the brand was a right place, right time sort of product and industry. And spent like 5 months working on it, 'cause it takes fucking ages to build this kind of product, which is
So what
it's a
actually goes
good
into
thing.
that?
Huh?
Like, what actually goes into building? Well, first I think we should probably talk about like what rainbow dust is. Like what actually is it? What kind
So
of concoction?
my initial, this is like the complicated part about, and I get into why it's complicated, like Instagram bans and so on, are all relevant to this.
Mm-hmm.
So my long-term view is I would like to build a consumer psychedelics brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like similar to how CBD
Yeah.
used to be fucking cannabis was just losers in a mum's basement. It's
Yeah.
now middle-aged women in a Range Rover driving to a private school dropping CBD,
Yeah.
trip drinks and brands like that. I'm not into CBD. Like it's comparable market, but it's different.
Yeah.
But it's similar in the sense that it's kind of developed massively in the past 20 years. Psychedelics, however, obviously they're still illegal. So psychedelics
Mhm.
being shit like psilocybin, LSD, magic mushrooms, which I've enjoyed myself recreationally in the past. But I'm more interested in the microdosing effects.
Yeah.
I've microdosed myself and so on, and all the research going on around the mental health benefit. Like mental health's probably been the biggest challenge in my life, to be honest. So maybe there's an element of it that I kind of feel a kind of mission driven part to the brand.
Yeah.
But this is like the bigger picture. Obviously the problem is you can't sell psychedelics on the
Yeah.
internet. I can't sell fucking psilocybin rainbow dust because I'd end up in prison. So my concept initially was, I know that market's coming, or I believe it's coming.
Yeah.
It may never come. I mean, in parts of Canada it's legal, parts of America now it's very much illegal. The vast majority of Europe,
Yeah.
you couldn't build a D2C brand selling that shit. So the concept of rainbow dust was I wanted it to be a legal imitation of a psychedelic microdose, which essentially just means a bunch of ingredients that, in my opinion, as a consumer, feel similar to taking a psychedelic microdose,
Yeah.
which 3 primary things, in my opinion, were focus, energy, and calm, and that's kind of how I packaged up the product and kind of put it out. Like, that was the marketing angle, really, initially. So the whole website referenced that at the start. But then I found that I can't run ads to anything talking about microdosing, psychedelics, and so that's the first Instagram ban was because of that. So I basically had to, in the first month, completely tweak the angle and not speak about any of that.
Yeah.
Which was frustrating because that felt like the grander mission of the business. I didn't just want to be a supplement brand.
Yeah.
But ultimately that's what you have to be at this stage. I can only sell stuff that's legal. So now I've kind of pivoted to a slightly more vanilla angle, which ultimately it's a coffee replacement.
Yeah.
But and it is, and it does work for that, and that's what all the other brands are pushing, particularly in America. But the more exciting thing, which is how I think, probably arrogantly or not, this could be like a unicorn business long term, like £1 billion plus, is if and when psychedelics are widely legalized. Because that's what I want to build, is a consumer psychedelics business. Because you see all the Netflix documentaries like How to Change Your Mind.
Literally.
There's a bunch of others. You've probably seen some of them. If you haven't, go watch them. And it's just fucking interesting. I just honestly believe that's going to be the biggest change in like wellness globally over like the next 10 years. But if that never happens, it's still a very viable business because we're ultimately just a wellness brand selling, all natural adaptogenic products, and that's what all our competitors are doing. Because, like I say, you can't sell psychedelics. But I guess my aesthetic of the brand and how it looks and sounds is kind of indicative of like psychedelics, like obviously
100%.
pink, purple, rainbow dust. Like people probably think it's illegal, which is kind of intentional. I want it to be controversial, spark interest.
Yeah, it's good.
Obviously, in comparison to other products that are like mushroom powder, brown fucking packaging.
So what's actually in it? Like, what's actually in like rainbow dust? Like,
so 3 different types of mushrooms: lion's mane mushroom, chaga mushroom, cordyceps mushroom. It's got ashwagandha in it, maca root. I'm gonna forget some of the fucking ingredients now. It's got a bit of coffee in it, which everyone gets controversial about. So it's meant to be caffeine free. It's not meant to be caffeine free. I just like feeling caffeinated. It's got vitamin B and rhodiola rosea. So it's a bunch of like strong adaptogenic ingredients. Which, to be honest, I knew not much about all this shit before I started doing it. But I was taking some of these supplements like separately, like stacking them. So I just read online, like particularly lion's mane for focus. All this sort of stuff.
I've heard a little bit about lion's
I just put
mane.
it all in one.
Yeah.
Basically.
So what does lion's mane actually do? I think does it increase like neuroplasticity? I was like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound like an idiot because I'm like
not
a fucking scientist. But yeah, basically stuff like that. I actually need to get like a science person into business to like, because the problem with, the challenge rather, with a new brand in this space is like, I will get comments on Instagram all the time when I've got Instagram that are like, I know more about this stuff than this fucking brand knows about their own product. I mean, obviously the people that are making the product are fucking like lab technicians and scientists and shit.
Yeah. I'm
just the fucking brand guy that knows how I want to feel. I don't even care that much about the ingredients, and I don't think my customers do either, to be honest. I think they want the outcome, which is that consistent buzz that like I said, like focus, energy, calm. They're like the 3 primary traits of rainbow dust. And honestly, like making the product, I actually rushed it a bit because I was so keen to get something to market ASAP, because I hate just, it's the first time I'd ever spent any amount of time or money really developing a product before I had like market feedback and sales, which was kind of scary, because I'm like, well, I think it's good, but does the market think it's good? And like I kind of rushed the first product, and I hadn't actually tried the final version before it went live. And like the first 3,000 units went out. But the reviews were very, very, very good, and they have been like 95% solid, and I'm pretty relieved with that, because it's always a risk going into
100%.
something new, but I think my instincts were right in terms of like the mushroom market, the way I branded it.
I think it is. I think it's a perfect angle, to be honest. Especially with it like becoming more popular, like you said about like Netflix, How to Change Your Mind, stuff like that. You know, things like that. And like, you know, I used to listen to a lot of Joe Rogan back in the day, and he piped on about it a lot.
He's a massive fan.
Yeah, he is. And I can totally see why. Like the science behind it and stuff like that they explain, it makes total sense. Like basically, like obviously, like more strong mushrooms basically allow you to rewire your brain. So like, you know, if you you know, it basically allows you to like change the way your brain works in it and like slowly morph it, which obviously is quite hard to do like normally. So I think it's a great product, and I think like most people who see the brand, you know, probably think like the same thing. And like, what's your general reaction like when you show people like the brand and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think without giving myself too much credit, I think the branding is very unique. I think it's going to get a load of people ripping it off, and I'm already seeing quite a bit of that on like Twitter and stuff. People that are documenting building new brands and so on. I'd never seen a product like a powdered supplement product that looked like that ever. So I think the packaging's very cool. And like I said, the reviews have genuinely been very good. I was kind of worried because I'd slightly rushed the development a bit, and like I thought it was good, but I was thinking maybe I'm just biased. But they genuinely have been good. Like, you know, the business gets messages every day, people like saying it's changed their life and shit, and I'm like, fucking hell, maybe it's a bit intense, but it is good. Like, it genuinely is good. And I think, like, from a business perspective, like, whole fucking grand long-term mission aside, it's like, it's a very simple business, and it's subscription focused, and like, I have like I'd like to fucking change the world with psychedelics, and, you know, go down in history as someone that pioneered that market and whatever, all that BS. But at the same time, I also really want to build it and sell it for a lot of money. And and I know how to do that in theory. I've got investors that have done that. They're, you know, helping me with that. It's kind of like a 3 to 5 year roadmap, really. And the way you do that is by building obviously a very unique, strong brand that dominates the market, and you get a lot of repeat customers. That's obviously great for business. It's great for valuations. And I base it kind of on Athletic Greens as a business model. Because like I said, I subscribe to them. My lifetime value must be massive. Same with Huel. Like, I must have paid them thousands of pounds over the years. And it's like, it's a very simple business. I mean, I've got other products on the way. Dream Dust is coming next.
What's that about?
It's a sleep product.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's fucking wavy.
But so how does that work? Like, what's in there?
It's another complex blend of other fucking ingredients. But basically the opposite. It's meant for sleep rather than focus. So the idea is, you know, people take that sleep, like the whole market angle is like, get the best sleep, dream about what you want to achieve. Like the whole idea of the brand is very like aspirational and like utopian. Like, obviously it's kind of pink, and I reference like palm trees and shit a lot, and like how it looks. And the whole idea is it's almost like chasing that utopian life, and, you know, being in the best mental state to do it. And that's just me kind of having fun with it. Because I like that whole like pink 80s aesthetic. Evidently, because I did the neon shit as well before.
But literally, I think it's a perfect storm, really. I think, like, especially what you talk about, you know, I've not seen anything that's realistically in the UK, especially that's like really could even class as like competition yet.
There's one or two, and I know them quite well, because my marketing agency runs all their shit as well.
Oh, bro, that's.
But we're gonna have to do something about that.
Yeah.
There is actually one thing that I want to know. Like, obviously, when you're developing these formulas, are you like testing each like batch?
I'm a lab rat. Yeah. I've just got
Yeah.
loads of samples in my flat.
Are these batches ever like proper weird or whatever?
A dodgy batch.
Obviously, they're coming from scientists.
I mean, yeah, like nothing would ever be consumable until it's like safe. But yeah, I've tested loads of shit. So I've got like a gummy that I was working on as well, like loads of different products. I'm also trying to work out how to legally develop an actual psychedelic version, which will contain psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. For those that don't know, that is still illegal. But
yeah. So how's that? How's
you
the?
probably have to do it in Amsterdam or something.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Because there's loads of cool shit you could do, but also like when you get past kind of the exciting stage of like developing the products and so on, the reality of growing a startup is just you got to focus on fucking money in, money out, and it becomes a bit more just fucking legwork. Do you know what I mean? Like right at the start, it's kind of the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
Developing this product, it's all exciting. Then it's just like, I need more stock of it. We need fucking customer service on point. You know, we need our ad accounts running smoothly.
Which obviously not going too well with
Yeah,
Instagram.
and there's always issues, of course. But also, like, and I'm just fucking rambling, so please ask me another question if there's something you want to go on. I find it funny because, again, like the whole culture of, I go on Twitter a lot. It's kind of where a lot of like ecom people are. I don't know if you are on there as well. But like people always talk about marketing, ad spend.
Yeah.
No one ever fucking talks about product ever.
Yeah.
Literally ever. Even though it's like the most important thing, because most people don't really care about product because they're running some dodgy dropshipping stuff. That's just the truth. But like product development is, you know, it's way less glamorous because it can take months without seeing any money. You know, it can take a lot of investment to make it happen. But that's really where you can build the moat around the business, because like it's very hard for someone to come in and rip my brand off, because granted that they could visually rip it off, but they probably need 50 grand minimum to even develop a product.
Yeah, and the research and stuff like
6
that.
months, they need to work with the right supplier, you know.
100%.
It
that's
cuts out a lot of competition right from the start.
I think it's the ultimate driver in any business's success is like the product at the end of the day. You know, if people refer other people to your product, they're like, oh, I'm using this product, it's absolutely sick. Literally, that is like the ultimate biggest converter. And I think like Elon Musk is quite like a big advocate for this. He often says, you know, like, I don't really spend any time on marketing, which I probably believe he does, but like, you know, it's the most important thing is making like a revolutionary product that you can't get anywhere else, and like if you want it, if you want a product that good, there's only one place you can buy it, and then the word just spreads like a virus. Like think about like what he's managed to accomplish, and it's like, you know, there's the ultimate driver. You know, people are gonna refer each other, and I think like that happened to us with like CCN at the start. Like you could literally like during COVID, it was literally like cash hand over fist. There was so much like shit to resell that people was literally referring each other like left, right and centre. It was absolutely insane. And then obviously as COVID like drops off, you know, the profitability kind of goes down for like members and stuff like that, although it's still profitable. You know, things like that are often hard to control, and in your situation, like, you know, it's going to be kind of hard for you to control like making the product significantly better if you can't like add in psychedelics and stuff like that. So maybe like the Amsterdam route and stuff like that is probably a really good shout. Yeah,
I mean, there's only so much you can legally do with a consumable product. Like, you know, everyone's bound by the same rules and regulations. So really, every brand out there has probably got a good product, but I think that's why you have to differentiate yourself with like packaging, branding, the way you market it. And there's always going to be competition, but I think right now I'm the only brand I'm seeing, at least in the UK, kind of doing it this way, and it's a very new market as well.
100%.
Like I said, there's like one or two main players, particularly in the UK, but they all look the same. And
at least you've got the edge.
Yeah.
But so what's like the most profitable avenues for you right now in terms of like customers and stuff like that, and how much is like returning customer? How much of your revenue a month is returning customers?
Yeah, so we're going like pretty much bang on 5 months now, so that's fucking flown by. We've done over like 12,000 customers now. We've got like 2,000 subscribers, which is good because it's just recurring. Returning customer rate's probably like, I don't know, looking at Shopify dashboard, probably like 35%. It's pretty high. So, and that's people either just buying again or subscribing, etc., etc. And that's the thing that can really compound in a business like this compared to like a jewelry brand, because someone buys a fucking necklace, they don't eat it. So they ain't going to buy another one next month unless it's like a new design or whatever, and even then they don't need it. So you want people to get, not addicted, but, you know, really like the product and work it into their day-to-day life. It's almost like a SaaS business. It's not quite the same. Because the churn's always going to be higher and shit, but as a model, I think subscription's the way forward. I mean, that's why I very consciously went into it. But in terms of channel, I mean, like D2C is obviously the main channel we're selling on. And in terms of ads, like Instagram, TikTok, Google, still heavily Instagram, even though I keep having issues with the account, which is getting sorted. But then I've just launched on Amazon as well, which I've never done in the past.
So how's that going? That's
going well, to be fair. I'd never sold on Amazon in my life until like 3 weeks ago. So I've got an agency running it, but it's just it's way more profitable than D2C, way more, because the ad spend's so much lower.
Yeah, that's one thing, and it's mad how like, because like usually when you make something on Amazon, I suppose though people are probably searching like space goods and it comes up very like.
Yeah,
early.
I mean, there's definitely an element of they'll see it on Instagram, then maybe buy it on Amazon. But
yeah, 100%.
like as an individual channel, yeah, it's a lot better. Then I'm looking at retail and stuff as well. Been approached by a few big retailers that are interested, but again, I've not really done that in the past. But one of my investors has a lot, and that's where they made most of their profit in their business. But it's a different ball game because it can take months. You know, there's a lot of red tape with like massive companies and shit.
Yeah,
I still think D2C is like it's going to be the primary channel. And then still ads wise, it's always going to be Facebook, Instagram, at least in my opinion for now. A lot of people talk about TikTok, but it just doesn't work as well for me.
You doing? Yeah, the thing is with TikTok, the one thing I found is that like totally depends on like your actual content. You know, sometimes you can get really shit traffic, and sometimes you can get really good traffic like that's really hardly converting. But like, do you do any like organic TikTok or anything like that, or is it just
I tried it. Honestly, TikTok's the first channel where I feel like natively too old to get it. I'm like, fucking hell, I actually don't get this.
Yeah, that's one thing that we felt though. Like we felt like we never really used TikTok and stuff like that, and then it become like one of our biggest channels because like, but recently in the last like month, I'd say it's become much more competitive. Like there's more people doing it, more people catching on.
I've spoken to founders of brands. This guy that runs this sex chocolate brand called Tabs.
Mad.
And I spoke to him, and they were doing like huge numbers organically like a few months ago. And said the algorithm changed.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened
because they can't run paid ads because of the nature of the product. So I'm always a bit hesitant to commit to a channel that can change that quickly. Yeah. So I've seen it happen with Instagram organic like 2 years ago.
100%.
Used to get like mad reach organically. Now it's like nothing. It's like Facebook. You get a page with 1 million likes getting 15 organic reach.
Literally insane.
So TikTok's next. It has to be because they get the users by doing all that shit. Then they say we're monetizing the fuck out of it. You got to pay to play.
Literally. And
so I think paid is always the way forward for that reason. But if you can add in organic on the side, which I've played around with a little bit. We had some video get like 2 million views and it definitely brought in traffic and sales, but it's 1 out of 100 videos. You know
That's what I mean. It's very hard to like narrow it down, into like getting that. And I think what you're probably saying is, you know, TikTok's they've probably started to realise that, you know, all this organic traffic is churning, like making people easy cash. Like, you know, what's costing like these companies to make a TikTok that's like goes viral is incredibly cheap, whereas they could just swap all that to ads. And then they make shitloads of money. So I imagine that's kind of that's got to be their ultimate game plan realistically. If they're in it for making money, the only way they're gonna make money realistically is through ads. So they probably should like tone it down. Yeah. But very interesting, mate. Very, very, very interesting.
There is one thing I wanted to ask. Did you actually microdose mushrooms?
Yeah.
So what was that like?
I do it a lot unofficially.
Yeah, but how did you find it?
As in, like find
source.
That's what work.
I was talking to someone like. It was last week. And he said it, and he just said he was just like working like 120%, like too focused.
I've definitely felt a difference when I've done it. Yeah.
To make you work like harder though, and like, or like
it makes
more
you
focused.
More creative. I think it makes you more emotional. Which for me ain't necessarily always a good thing. Depends who's replying to my fucking DMs on it. But it definitely helps you get in touch with. I'm absolutely convinced that, you know, all major music artists have got some custom psychedelic dose that they're on. You cannot tell me Travis Scott is sober writing those albums. I mean, maybe not just psychedelics, maybe fucking lean and other shit, but
loads of shit.
Like, even like big tech CEOs, you read about. I mean, this isn't fact; it's like rumors, but like Mark Zuckerberg's on some like crazy like LSD thing. I mean, Steve Jobs was famous for it.
Was he? Man, I didn't know that.
Taking like LSD and shit.
Crazy.
I'm not condoning it because it's still illegal, but you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of very successful people have experimented a lot with that because, yeah, my experience, and I've never done like ayahuasca and shit.
Yeah.
I read a lot about that, you know, like doing those mad like monk trips in like some Japanese forest.
Yeah.
Fucking quite intrigued to try, but yeah, it's just interesting.
My take on the ayahuasca is that like I'm worried if I did something like that it kind of like change my view on life, and it might make me like not as like ambitious. And like, it might make me humble. That's what my worry is. I'm like, if I do it too early, then I might just fucking
become like a zen.
Yeah, innit? Literally, I might just. That's my only worry with it. So I was thinking, probably wait till I'm a bit older, until I'm a bit more successful.
Yeah, ayahuasca is like a different level to like fucking mushrooms, but it's a similar kettle of fish. Yeah, it is interesting. I would definitely like to experiment more. Just need to go and do a weekend in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
that's where you can start. Because it's legal over there.
Might have to try it. Yeah, anyway, any of you boys got any questions?
Covered everything I wanted to know, really, to be honest.
I know, yeah.
It's getting hot in here, isn't it?
Yes, mate, I'm sweating, mate. Anyway, pal, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Hope I didn't ramble too much like I always do.
Nah, it's an inspiring story, honestly, and I hope for people listening, you know, who are thinking on starting business, thinking about doing everything, you know, it's a prime example of like starting £50 to 8 figures-ish, and then like starting all over again. But it's an insane story, an absolutely insane story, mate, and I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you.
All good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Pleasure.
Cheers, mate.